Wilson Morales from Black Film TV, the man of the hour, Grantham Coleman. How's it going?
Hey man, short time, no see. Good to see
you
you
never know
again.
when you never know when everything's going to line up. And for you right now, things are lining up. Obviously, you've got Power Reason, season three coming up. And then you've got, you're currently on Bass Reeves. If not, you're on the big screen and small screen and Rustin. You hear you're playing Ronnie in season three. What are we getting from your character?
Man, Ronnie is an individual not to be played with. I just landed on the word cantankerous, so that's the one I'm going with. He's a cantankerous individual. He's bad-tempered, slightly argumentative, but he also doesn't use many words. So it's more like if looks could kill, there'd be a lot more bodies.
I've seen your work on stage, so I couldn't say this is a departure for you, but it's a new role for you. What went into taking on this project?
Man, I'm so excited to join the Power universe, man. From seeing all the other shows and the original show and getting a chance to kind of flex my range a bit and really take a departure from what I've done on stage and what I've done in other shows and actually, maybe be a little scary, a little threatening. So it was a really big challenge, but Sasha, our showrunner, and he delivered some words of wisdom and the audition that just kind of set me forth in this way and getting to work with Joey on a day-to-day basis and like bounce off Neek, who we know as fans of the show is also an individual not to be played with. So to get to be his older brother, and you can see that kind of like how when brothers get together, either, hey, everything could be fine, we're play fighting. The next thing you know, oh, you real fight. That kind of brotherly relationship. And it was a blessing.
I was just telling Joey, he goes, now that you've got family on the show, they're keeping you on longer. When you're an individual on the show, if you don't got family, there's a ticking clock. There's a time clock. It's like, okay, how many episodes are you going to be in before he goes out? And the question is, how easy going to go out? But then when they said, and they announced it last year, we're going to have a brother named Ronnie. I'm like, oh, Joey got more lines. And then you see you in there, you're like, okay, they ain't playing. We seen what Grantham can do. And like you say, he's a man of few words. His eyes and the mannerism says it all. So coming into this, did you have to play catch up in terms of watching the show as you got the series, or were you already a fan and you just like, okay, I can blend right in?
I had seen Power before, but I hadn't seen all the spinoffs yet. So yeah, it was a little bit of catching up and also seeing like, okay, what's going on? What's going on? But also early 90s, I'm a kid of the early 90s. It's my favorite time period. So like getting to go back in time and everybody's fly. Ronnie has his own particular tastes and his own particular style, and I think fans will see it and they'll definitely get where he's coming from. But like just being in that time period and seeing the attention to detail that they pay from the set to the costumes to the slang at the time that we're using, like it was kind of like just a big playground. As an actor, getting to just put yourself in your favorite time period in your favorite place and see what happens. Um,
It's funny you mentioned time period, and I'm thinking of what I mentioned earlier. So we're talking the '90s here, and then you've got Rustin, which is set in the '60s, and then you've got Bass Reeves, which go back further. So how are you keeping in touch? And I guess for you, you have to do extensive research in terms of the history of the time period from the '90s, to the '60s, to even going back to Bass Reeves. Your knowledge must be good. I'm like, okay, I want to see him on Jeopardy soon.
well, I mean, that's one of the biggest things about being an actor is also you're a student, you're a learner, you have to be someone who can sit and actually try and figure out, okay, what were people thinking then? And honestly, people were thinking the same thoughts. Everybody ate food, everybody wanted to go to sleep, everybody didn't want to go to work. But the other things of like, what was it to be a black man in 1880s America? What is it to try and be a civil rights leader then versus try and be a civil rights leader in the 60s? And, it's a unique pairing of different visions by two different people. And I think Rustin is a really great opportunity to show his individual that we didn't really know planned the movie. We didn't know he was behind the march because no one ever talked about it because we tried to put him away. So getting to be a part of that story and, being like also in the 60s clothes, which I thought was so cool. Man, we need to bring a lot of that stuff back. But it is being a researcher and being a student and, trying to confirm this and asking somebody this and trying to talk to your elders and your ancestors about like, well, what was it like for you when you were there? So we get to learn a lot.
And then there's, like I said, you've got Bass Reeves, so you're on, if anything, people are watching you everywhere, so you're on Bass Reeves, new series, Taylor Sheridan, what's that experience like, working with that team and David?
Oh man, David is amazing. Like the first day I was on set, we're doing one of my last scenes in the series, and I hadn't met David in person before. I've been in the same room with him, I never talked to him, and we didn't really get a chance to talk before we rehearsed the scene. So we go right into rehearsal, and he hits me with his Bass Reeves, and I literally was like, God, this brother can act. Like, because I've seen him in other shows. I've seen him. I've heard his voice. I know what he sounds like. But I was like, oh, wow, I'm here with Bass. And then, like, we finished the rehearsal, and he's like, oh, yes, so and I was like, man, Dave, you just got me. You just got me. Like, I'm sorry, bro. I was just responding because of your immense talent. And so being on that set with him and seeing the way he led, and from the Damian Marcano, to Taylor Sheridan, to Chad and like everybody that was involved in that process, and getting us to a place where we can feel comfortable representing these people from over 150 years ago, because their knowledge and everything they put out helped us like accomplish it. It was incredible, and also it was so good to work in Texas.
And then bringing it back to raising Kanan, when you work with a team like a Rustin, it's an ensemble. You work with Bass Reeves, it's an ensemble. And raising, Kanan season 3, it's an ensemble. Talent could never stop learning. So while you're working on this show, and I don't know which came first or whatever, what did you particularly learn on raising, that helps you as an actor skill set wise, whether it's working with actors or directors?
Oh, I mean, the good thing with Ronnie was it was an exercise in not saying things. Like, how do you exist? How do you be in a room and let your presence alone tell the story? Because Ronnie is not a man of a lot of words. He's more felt and seen than heard. So it was a really interesting challenge of how do I do this with actors like, Joey, Patina, and Omar Epps? Like, you're surrounded by this talent. Like, how do you come as enough in this episode to bring this man to life? And I think I learned a lot of big acting lessons from Raising Kanan that I could take into the other projects. So
are we to say that your theater days are over because you're eating now?
Never. As a trained actor, as we're supposed to say, like, you're never that far from the stage. But man, I'm just excited to actually be in all these projects. And I would say more Grantham the better, but that's just me.
Hey, and I know there's more to come. Congrats on this role. Obviously, congrats on all that's happening right now for you. Just live the moment, seize the day. And obviously, we're going to talk down the road because you're eating and you're working. And I'm happy for you.
Appreciate you, man. It's always good to rap with you. Like, everywhere I am, you're there. Love it.
You work gives me work.
Thanks, miss. Thanks.
Okay.